Hey everyone, Economic Ninja here. I hope you're doing well. It is all coming apart, and there are things that are happening right now, falling apart at the seams, and there are some things that are about to begin. Over the next 4 months, we are going to see things in the economy and in politics that honestly will shock all of us, me included. And the reason why I know that is because I was shown some things a long time ago, and they're starting to all roll out. And we've been preparing for an economic collapse. We're seeing the economy collapse little by little. But remember, as a famous person said when asked how he went bankrupt, he said, slowly and slowly and slowly, and then all of a sudden at once. I'm totally butchering that quote. But that's exactly what happens in economic downturns as well. And I want people to understand that going into this election, there is a lot at stake. Our country's freedom is one. And secondly, our economy. So I want to dive into a handful of stories, but first we're going to go through 39 things about the new vice president, JD Vance, Trump's running mate. And again, I've got political news and I've got financial news today, so please stick around and here we go. Oh, real quick, today is the first day. I've never done this before, but it's my newest course, Investor Mortgage Pro. It is almost 90% off. Links down below. As soon as we just push the rest of the videos off to the editor, as soon as they come back and they're uploaded, the sale's gone. It's 87% off. If you've ever wanted to finance real estate, especially for rental purposes, cash flow purposes, everything from, a duplex to 500 units. We cover everything in there. You'll learn everything about how to save money, how to structure it properly. Links down below. All right, 39 things to know about JD Vance, Trump's running mate. This is out of Zero Hedge. I want to remind you that JD Vance is on record. I've seen lots of video of him calling Trump Hitler. And it's very interesting that we are seeing, and said lots of really bad things about Trump over the last few years. And it's very interesting that he picks him. And I'm going to ask you this. Type 1, I'd be typing 1 myself. If you would have a hard time picking a running mate that has insulted you so many times over the years. I have to be honest with you, that blows my mind. But one thing about Ukraine really gets me pumped up about this, all right? Because I for one, cannot stand that we are supporting this war in Ukraine. We are spending our hard-earned tax dollars that should be staying here in our country right now to help our homelessness, help our veterans, help a lot of things, even to the potholes in the roads, but it's going to fund a war to hide something. Type 2 if you agree with that. It makes me sick. And there's one thing about JD Vance that I really like, and he cannot stand this war in Ukraine. All right, here we go. So on July 15th, you know that Donald Trump announced his running mate, JD Vance. So here they are. Number 1, he's 39 years old. Number 2, he's 39 years old. Since he was born on August 2nd, 1984, turning 40, he's the first millennial on the major party ticket and one of the youngest vice presidential candidates in history. Number 2, he's Catholic. Number 3, he's married to Ursha. I cannot even pronounce the last name. I'm sorry, Vance. Mr. Vance is married to Ursha Vance, whom he met at law school, and they married in 2014. The couple has 3 children. He's considered a populist conservative. He grew up in a lower class family. I love that. I honestly love that. If you forget where you're coming from, you're going to lose where you're going. Type 3 if you agree with that. He is a best-selling author. There's a movie adaptation of his book. Number 9, he experienced the decline of the Rust Belt. That's good to know, because when you see degradation, you see the destruction of your area where you grew up in, you really start to live a different life. When things aren't always sunshine and roses, excuse me, and that's exactly what's been happening with a lot of Americans over the last 20, 30, even 40 years. We've been growing up in this thing where everything is awesome. Sure, there was the Great Recession. Sure, there was some downturns, but by and large, how many of your friends have you talked to about, this coming economic downturn? And then you bring up the Great Recession. They go, oh, well, look everything's back. Everything's good. It's good when you understand cycles. It's good when you see things that go bad, because then you understand that things can get worse. Most people do not understand that. They think that everything's always going to be great. Everything is awesome. They don't understand how fast things can change or turn. Sorry, it's dry out here. All right. Number 10, he grew up in Ohio, but considered Eastern Kentucky his home. He says, I've always distinguished my address from my home, Mr. Vance wrote in Hillbilly Elegy. My address was where I spent most of my time with my mother and my sister, wherever that may be, but my home never changed. My grandmother's house is in Holster, Jackson, Kentucky. Number 11, his parents divorced when he was a toddler. Number 12, his original surname was Bowman. Number 13, his mother suffered from substance abuse issues. Again, we need people in politics that understand the hard times in life. Because I have a feeling when you jump into the government, actually I know this to be certain, chat 5 if you agree, when you get into the government, you're fed a bunch of lies and you start to find a lot of deceit. And when you're fed tons of money from all these corporations wanting to buy your vote and stuff, you lose track of reality. And I think that most of our politicians absolutely have. So I do love that you have the mix of someone very young in this position, because I know that millennials, I really do believe this, a lot of millennials really do, they're not striving to be super uber wealthy. They just want to be happy. They just want to live a good life. They are still sort of reeling from watching what their parents went through in the Great Recession. And I think it's a good thing that he's so young. Said he lived with his grandmother. His grandparents were Democrats. He is definitely not. He's a Marine Corps Iraq combat vet. God bless our veterans. Thank you so much to our veterans that fight for our country, even when they see the tyranny in our government. He has a dual undergrad degree from Ohio State. He earned a JD from Yale Law School. He was an editor at the Law Journal. He's close with Peter Thiel. He was a venture capitalist. It says here, Mr. Vance started Naira, based in Ohio, an early stage venture capital firm focused on using technology and science to solve for the future, according to its website. He sponsored programs to combat drug addiction. He was a CNN contributor. Well, that's interesting. He wasn't always pro-Trump. I talked about this before. Again, very unbelievable for somebody that, and I've watched a ton of insults that he's hurled at Trump over the years, for Trump to pick him. I got to say, I couldn't do it, but that's just me. He said his views evolved after Trump took office. Since 2016, Mr. Vance said his views on former president have changed, and he recanted his statements from 2016. The reason for this, he said, was seeing how former President Trump handled the job. In a May interview with CNN, he told anchor Dana Bash, I didn't think he was going to be a good president, Dana, and I was very, very proud to be proven wrong. It's one of the reasons why I'm working so hard to get him elected. Number 26, and we're almost done with this list. He voted for Trump in 2020. Next, he won a tough primary in crowded field. We're talking about the GOP Senate race. He was Donald Trump Jr.'s pick for vice president, obviously. He's been in the Senate since January of 2023, so not very long. He is a conservative. He has a conservative voting record, which is excellent. He has worked across the aisle on legislation. And you know what? I'm going to stop right there because there's so many darn things. It'll be crazy. We got so much more news to get to. But my point being is I'm pretty excited. I have to look at certain decisions people make and I'm like, huh? But I have to sit there and be a little quiet and think about why they're doing this, because not everyone thinks like me, right? And I'm not the smartest guy in the world. You know, who is? And so anyway, I just want to share that with you. Let's dive into these stories. And again, I'll put the link down below. We got a ton of emails. Pre-filming sale for mortgage, Investor Mortgage Pro, 87% off pre-filming. As soon as we're done with the videos, that sale goes away. It will never, ever be this low again. Links down below if you want to look into what it's all about. Okay, first off, in the economy, Hugo Boss slides after slashing outlook as luxury downturn gains momentum. This is really important. I've got a couple stories of this being in the luxury sector. Why? When you see, and this is what most people don't believe, but hey, Type 5, if you ever saw that show, The Vanilla Ice Project, where that rapper, the white rapper Vanilla Ice from the 90s, started buying and selling homes in Florida. And what he found during the Great Recession, it was actually even before 2008, was these McMansions that were built, and what you would think were multi-millionaires walked away from them was just people that were totally over leveraged. And that is happening right now. I remember going into a Lamborghini dealership and looking at some cars that I want to buy. I want to buy a Shelby Cobra, and they had a gorgeous charcoal gray with lime green stripes, Resto Mod Cobra in there. It was gorgeous. And I was in there looking at it, and I was looking at some of the Lamborghinis and talking with the salesman, and of course he says the famous line, like every Rolex dealer, well, these never go down in price. I'm like, oh, you're high. When did you start your job? He said 2010. I'm like, oh, so you've never seen an economic cycle. Okay, copy. Well, those cars are still there. And I did ask him, I said, how many people, and we talked for like 45 minutes, how many people pay cash for these cars? He goes, barely any. Barely any. And I said, what is your biggest client? What do they do for a living? He goes, your crypto, your Bitcoin millionaires, and your social media people. Those are, because they all want to be flashy, right? And I'm like, all right, copy. And so I've said the same thing at Rolex. Those have all turned over. Well, right here it says Hugo Boss tumbled as much as 10% on its lowest level since 2021 on Tuesday, after the luxury German clothing manufacturer slashed its full year outlook. And everyone, this should get you excited, because this is a signpost of what's coming. And if you're ready for this, you're going to go charge the mound. Sorry, it's bright. And you're going to absolutely crush it. All right, here we go. The company cited sliding demand for luxury goods due to persistent macroeconomic and geopolitical changes. I can guarantee you one thing. Type 6 if you agree. There is not one fake rich person, okay, people that have a ton of credit card debt are out there at a Hugo Boss store buying an expensive handbag going, oh, you know, depending on who wins the presidential election, I might not buy one of these things. No, that is not the case. These people just want to impress people. And would I like a fine handbag to walk around with? Yes. I bought a true story. I like nice things, but I can't spend money on just someone's name plastered all over the side of things. That's just me. My wife found an Italian handbag in TJ Maxx for $200. I know it sounds crazy, but she bought it for me as a Christmas gift, and I absolutely love it. It is built so well. Pure leather, amazing looking bag. And it was $200 at TJ Maxx. And it has nobody's name written all over it, some stupid person's face, you know, so that I can impress people. You know, it's not going to impress anyone. I like it. I think the stitching's amazing. The inside, it's just built so well. It's one of those bags you're like, it's like looking at some stuff in my father's closet that he uses all the time, or his coat that he's worn for like 60 years. It's never going to fall apart. The stitching is proper. The materials are good. And it doesn't have some brand name plastered all over it. So I think it's really important to buy nice things, but not to sit there and impress people just because I want to buy something that lasts forever. Anyway, sorry, I go off, but type 7 if you agree with that. I like buying good quality things. As a matter of fact, in America, you know, America was, and it still is, it's known for making really good things, but we have suffered, we have handed over quality for quantity by buying things in Vietnam, China, and stuff because it's cheaper, right? So we shop at Walmart and these larger stores because it's cheaper. Well, especially in today's economy where inflation's exploding, regardless of what the government tells you, and it forces more people to buy that kind of stuff. Well, now you're seeing these high-end retailers like Hugo Boss, and I'm going to cover Rolex in a second, are collapsing. And this is what happened in 2006, 2007. If that doesn't get you fired up, I don't know what will. Now, it says here, you know, it talks about their sales decreasing and all that stuff. Who cares about that? Let's jump into Fed Chair Powell. He acknowledged more inflation progress. This is something I've been warning about since last October. I've said that they are going to start coming out with data that's better than expected. And at a certain point, Powell is going to sit there and go, you know what? We can go ahead and lower rates. And this is a political move. It's not going to last long. They're going to lower rates, in my opinion, 25 basis points between 2 or 3 times before the election. And it's funny, I got a quote one day, I was talking about the actual months they're going to lower, and they don't even need a meeting to lower rates. And this is going to be a political move. See, what's happening right now is everyone is scared pissless because of who is going to get to be president next, because they know the Federal Reserve knows it's a private bank. Most people don't. They know that they run under a charter, and the president elects the chairman. That's only just smoke and mirrors to make most people think that it's a government entity, but it's not. And they know that the president, like John F. Kennedy, could go after the Federal Reserve or go after three-letter organizations. And this is ultimately what got Kennedy assassinated. And it's sad but true. This is the world we live in. And we have to know these things. We have to share this knowledge, because the more knowledge you get, the better decisions you can make, right? Type 7 if you agree with me. Every time you gain a little bit more knowledge and then you're able to take wisdom and put that knowledge to work, you're absolutely going to crush it in any circumstance. All this bad news that I'm giving you right now is actually good news. When you know the bad news, you know, oh, I'm standing on the train track. There's the train. It's going to come squash me. All I got to do is move off of the tracks. But right now, most of America are completely delusional. They're sitting there going, that train isn't real because I'm going to will it to not hit me. It will stop because it sees me. Most people are esteeming themselves, and they're thinking they're so awesome that they're like, that train's not going to hit me. Yeah, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. Well, it says here, Fed Chair Powell said the economy has performed remarkably well over the last couple of years, and he expected the economy to slow and inflation to continue to make progress this year. Well, this is why, because he's straight up lying to you. The government numbers are lies. All they're doing is they're going, the inflation report, well, it looks great because we took out food and electricity and gasoline. This is the truth. They are lying to you. Type 8 if you agree with that. They are straight up lying to you. So when he says the economy is great, he's actually lying to you. Ben Bernanke did it in 2005. He said, the mortgage crisis is over. We fixed it. When Maria Bartiromo on CNBC questioned Bernanke and said, hey, we think there's a problem with mortgage-backed securities. And he said, no, I don't agree with your premise. Everything is fixed. Remember, Bernanke, after being 100% wrong and watching the country dive into the greatest recession since the Depression, and he was a Depression scholar, he goes off to get paid millions and millions of dollars in speaking fees when he was 100% wrong. It's pretty much called bribe money, but just to give you an idea. Most people don't understand how this works, so they don't understand how these economic cycles work. Lastly, let's do this, and again, I'm going to throw out a shout out to the sale, 87% off. Pre-filming. As soon as we're done with the last video, it's done. Investor Mortgage Pro. If you want to learn how to buy rentals and finance them using mortgages and saving lots and lots of money in fees and points and interest, go check it out. This is out of Fortune. After surge in pandemic profits, Rolex, Patek Philippe, I don't even know how to pronounce these big names. Patek Philippe, and oh gosh, and Andermars Puget. I'm assuming that's a watchman. Andermars Puget. Hey, I want to start me a watch company. What should I call it? Andermars Puget. Man, God bless you. Now, after you sneezed, what should I call it? And okay, sorry. Face a significant downturn as sales slip, extending a 2-year decline. Prices for the most sought-after luxury watches slipped on the secondary market again last month, extending a 2-year decline as investors turn elsewhere after pandemic-era rally fizzled. The Bloomberg Subdial Watch Index, which tracks the 50 most traded watches by transaction value, declined less than 1% in June. That's not true. It's fallen 8% in the year. Not true. It's worse. And 23% in the past 2 years. Oh, gosh. All right, let me tell you a little something about Rolex. They're like the De Beers of watches. They go, oh, it's downturn time. Okay, we're not going to make as many. We're just going to float out a couple. And they hold back inventory. I actually went into Bob's Watches, nation's largest used watch dealer, year ago, and I embarrassed the heck out of my son. And I think I've told you guys the story already where they're like, what do you want? I'm like, I want the cheapest Rolex here. I knew it was like $2,000. I wasn't going to buy it, but I wanted to see it. And I told them that Rolex indicator was about to turn down. Long story short, they all laughed at me. And then they immediately asked me if I had ever heard of the BRICS nations. Couldn't believe it. Crazy story. I wish I had the thing on film, right? But there was security guards and guns and no windows. It was awkward. Well, I just went into a pawn shop, a huge pawn shop, like really high-end stuff. And I talked to the manager the other day, and he said he didn't want to go on camera, which none of them ever want to go on camera with a Ninja. If you own a pawn shop in Nevada and you want to go on camera with a Ninja, please, I will show up, because I know what they're going to say. Sales are turning down. They're not selling goods, but what they're doing is they're doing a lot of loans. People are pawning stuff so fast. And he says, and this pawn shop manager has been a manager of a pawn store or multiple pawn stores for 40 years. He said this is worse than what he saw in the running up to the Great Recession. So the point being is, you're in good hands. If you see the trouble here, you know how to deal with it, right? Or maybe you don't know how to deal with it, and then you need to figure out things. Well, one of the easiest things, get out of debt or not get into extra debt, and then start to look to buy assets. There's a reason why gold, silver, Bitcoin, and things like that are going up in value, because the dollar is going down in value. And I don't care what the DXY says, and that's a Forex term for a dollar compared to a bunch of other currencies, a basket of currencies. It's because the dollar is the best smelling turd in the punch bowl. So would you like to be do you want like a bad smelling turd, or a better smelling turd, or gold, silver, Bitcoin? The choice is up to you. If you want the better things and not the turds, type 10. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. The Economic Ninja is out, and the pre-filming sale is now launched. As soon as we're done with the courses, the lessons, the sale's over. It will never be 87% off ever again. Hope you have a great day. The Economic Ninja out. Wow.